Yeah, hello Elke. Thank you for joining me. I'm very
Thanks for having me.
excited. Yeah, I'm very happy that you're going to be keynote speaker at the IC. I mean, I've known you at least for 10 years, I think, from the from the German conferences, and then I think you've come to IC also at least once,
No,
2018,
several times, I
several
think,
times. Yes, that's
three
right.
times or so. Yeah, I would
Hmm.
have to recapitulate what exactly
Yes,
the dates
and
were.
2023, you had just published your book, and it hadn't quite been printed in English yet, but you gave me a copy in
There
German
now.
language. I have it here.
Yeah, it actually arrived the day after my
Yeah.
return from the conference.
So it wasn't meant to be that time, but this that prepared the ground so that you're actually going to be keynote for integral politics at the IC. So I'm really, really happy about that and would like to find out more about what you're going to speak about and what is most burning questions for you at the moment.
Well, we're recording this conversation in January, and my sensation is that politics is so dynamic these
Mm,
days, and that it's difficult for me to say what I'll be talking about in June or
mm,
in May, I guess. And I think we have to respond to what developments we
mm,
will see, especially with great changes that are going to occur in the USA with new
mm,
leadership. And so I don't really dare to predict what it will be. But I mean, the overall topic that you chose lends itself to a lot of political applications, looking at wholeness and finding wholeness in politics and what could that mean and how could we serve all those different polarities that are there in
mm,
current realities. And that's already part of what integral politics is about, I guess, right? Surfing polarities and dancing with them in a way, and
mm, mm,
to stand in those polarities.
mm,
And I personally, I like to work with deep democracy approaches a lot for
mm,
doing this, for integrating more of the
mm,
polarities and of the multifaceted many faces, as Ken Wilber says, of reality.
mm,
And there's one book by one of the founders of Deep Democracy, Arnold Mindell, which is called Sitting in the Fire. And I think that's a good metaphor for this ability to, yeah, to hold polarities, to hold tension without
mm,
panicking, without fear, because that's actually one core characteristic of the integral way of being and the
mm,
integral value system is more. It's really a way of being that Claire Graves has described so beautifully. There is no fear. Fear is gone, right?
mm.
So this allows us more than at least other value systems to go into those difficult moments and into those challenges without fear and trying to yeah put ends together and see how we can create synergies and solve problems that have appeared unsolvable before with this
Yes.
mindset. So it's going to be really about this overall challenge of okay, how can we become more whole in our whole approach to politics? Whereas politics, as we see it right now, we like to call it politics as usual, a little bit ironically. It tends to be really about right or wrong, all those polarities, truth or post-truth, or all this competition where politics is really about winning over your opponent, right, over your competitor, which in a way was functional in the early days of parliamentarism, but nowadays it's just so dysfunctional, and we have to really come up with some more smart, some smarter way of organizing ourselves and of organizing our political processes.
Hmm. Yeah.
So those are just some thoughts that I could
Yeah,
talk
that sounds great. And
about.
and I think you're all about empowering the citizens that they don't just make a cross at the ballot, but that they actually take action themselves.
Well, I think that's a crucial part of a new politics, let's say an update for our democracies, which
Mm,
is essentially what integral politics is about. It's like a
Yes.
new paradigm, it's a new mindset, but going through all the quadrants, it also means a new system, right?
All
And the
right.
system is, of course, the most difficult thing to change, whereas our culture is already quite, let's say, it has gone beyond the modern type of approach, while the system is still quite modern. It's still quite clear. And of course, I mean, it's meant to be, systems are meant to be stable, and we can acknowledge our systems for a lot of, peaceful developments and so on and so forth. But now we sense so strongly that they're coming to a natural end of functionality, simply speaking. And so we have to rethink politics, to rethink democracy in all quadrants, if you want. And one part of that is, of course, to empower citizens, but not in the sense of we empower somebody,
No.
but in the sense of us citizens self-empowering in a way, right? We had this conversation with Karen O'Brien and her beautiful book, We Matter More, You Matter, or We Matter More Than We Think, is all about this idea that if we shift our sense of who we are, our sense of how we are in this world, this changes everything, right? If we take quantum science seriously, it means that in a matter of moments, we can shift the way we show up and consequently also the implications of our actions. So that's
That sounds great. Yeah.
area of exploration as well.
Yeah, Karen's also going to be keynote speaker at this year's IEC. I'm really happy about that. And she'd wanted to come for a few times, but so far it was never possible. But this time she's actually coming in person. So maybe we can even cook something up that you get a section together for some longer time for Q&A.
Yeah, we cooked up this book together, as you know.
Yes, that's right.
Karen
Yeah.
has a beautiful article in this about this approach of quantum politics, so to speak. If we took those insights that are now 100 years old, right? Quantum physics has been around for a while.
Yeah, amazing.
If we took that seriously, finally, and applied it to other areas of life, what would that be? And that's quite a recommended reading, let's say.
Yes, and it's I can't say I have really understood what quantum physics is about. I keep hearing reading articles or listening to YouTubes about it, but it is really a total paradigm shift, that the universe is actually not as fixed as we think.
Yeah, everything being interconnected, because we're so not used to thinking that way in our linear mindset. Yeah.
And at the same time, the world has become so small, and everything anybody says affects everywhere else. So it is absolutely essential that we actually think as one world, and that we take action as one.
Yeah, that's one of the core principles that I have identified as a result of this book, right? Which is really about presenting the core inspirational thinkers. But then what's the bottom line? So the next book will be about the 10 principles that can be identified as a bottom line of, well, what is the essence of integral politics? What's the main difference? What's the main paradigmatic new quality, right, in this? And one of those principles is the role of spirituality in the sense of an ontology of connectedness, right? Of this interbeing kind of perception of who we are and how we are in this world. And a lot of things can be derived from that. Essentially, and also those ideas that are now getting more and more attention, for example, by indigenous people. I'm just reading a book about the Kogi that is quite popular in Germany these days, where this is also, very interesting to read, that there is this whole philosophy of connectedness. It is very embodied, it's very grounded, very down to earth, up until what we eat and our territory that we were born at, and so on and so forth. And we have lost that connection pretty much. So a lot of questions around that. So getting reconnected in the grounded sense, but also in the vertical sense of like moving up and down, as Aurobindo said, like the divine coming down and us moving up in our development is one process, right? And
yeah, and the process of development, it's always, I mean, Ken Wilber described it very well, that each time you change a level, you leave some parts behind, or you're in danger of disassociating some parts of yourself, some selves that then don't keep developing. And it's really important to do our shadow work, and also to heal the intergenerational trauma. I think we have a lot of trauma left over from the world wars, and
especially in Germany.
Especially in Germany. Well, I think especially in Germany, at the same time, I think in Germany we have already done a lot more for reconciliation than, for example, in the United States of America.
That's right.
You know, so
we have the topic on our agenda, so to speak.
We do.
Public consciousness that this matters, even though there's much left to do. And
there's a lot left to do, yeah, because my parents' generation, they couldn't, they had to just survive. So it's really from my generation onwards that we can actually heal it. We can begin to look at it, face it, and heal it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's another really interesting and really important dimension in my perception of integral politics that I'm trying to practice a lot in my activities here in Freiburg, essentially, the shadow work, right? Because that's, I think, one of the most neglected areas in current politics.
Yes,
the inner dimensions in general.
Yes.
But then when we look at the inner dimensions, especially, well, they are invisible by definition, right? So, and they include everything that in the Freudian iceberg model is below the waterline, right? The emotions, the trauma, everything that causes conflict, and also taboos and things that we don't like to talk about in public, or that we don't dare to talk about because it's somehow not so well perceived, or you might fear some kind of social, I don't know, exclusion or whatever. And that's fear again, right? Integral politics is without fear. So we can start, you know, as deep democracy says, lowering the waterline and see what's underneath, because that's where the potential lies to come up with qualitatively new solutions. So we are invited to engage in this shadow work and see kind of, as you said, dissociations we can maybe bring in again and use for our healing, collective individual. So that could be a topic for a workshop, actually, because I've done it quite a few times around German topics. We have a lot of shadow in the German discourse, but it would be curious also to test that on a European level, right? What are the topics that are difficult to speak up about in a European setting?
It would be interesting, actually, just thinking of the host country. I mean, there's quite a lot of shadow in Hungary, I think.
How do we deal with these things on an EU level, so to speak?
Oh, yeah, wow, a lot of shadow in the EU Parliament,
And it could be very helpful, actually, to become clearer about our joint values, right? Joint values, and what do different people or different countries, maybe even different cultures, mean by the same value that everybody formally subscribed to. But what does it mean? Did we ever have a values discussion, a proper discussion? I think in the integral paradigm, as understood by Lalou, for example, this Reinventing Organization book, he describes that all the organizations that he identified as teal or as integral, they have this as an ongoing practice, right? Like every once in a week or so, they would meet and, you know, make sure that everybody's in the same boat in terms of their values and their goals and objectives and so on and so forth. And that would be a very interesting discussion to have, I think, also in this integral context, maybe to see, well,
wouldn't it be
differences, where the assumptions and the projections, and how can we come up with maybe some kind of joint bottom line?
Yeah, wouldn't it be wonderful if a session of Parliament started that way?
Oh yeah.
But maybe that's too much to ask, but maybe in local groups or initiatives, they can start that way, like, and then it can slowly become part of the culture. I think that's probably the only way. We can't wait for the big parties and for the national governments to make the changes.
Yeah, probably they're the slowest ones to change, right? But then at the same time, that's where change is most effective. And so there are already, I mean, people inside parties who are quite open and who have understood or who are understanding that something needs to change. I mean, they're in this system and they're sensing that it's no longer, really moving efficiently. So I think behind the scenes, everybody, well, many people would agree that we need something new, but we don't know what it could be. So everybody's afraid to step into the void, so to speak.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's an important project right now also in the German-speaking area called Democracy Update, which is actually doing just that, brainstorming ideas for what could a more whole or more, they don't call it integral, but like a next step kind of new paradigm update. What could that look like, and what could it include in terms of what are cool ideas, innovative ideas, like the one you just voiced, right? Why could the parliament start with a, kind of a conversation about our joint values? Would be very interesting and even not polarizing necessarily.
That's right.
I find that's a very cool idea. I haven't heard that before. So, I mean, let's collect ideas, right? Maybe they're right at our feet. If we start asking the right questions, the answers will come. And that's another thing that I would really love to explore in an integral conference like this. Like, what cool ideas could we come up with if we just ask the right questions? Right? Because then ideas tend to fall into place.
Lovely. Yeah. Yeah, great. I mean, I'm really happy that you're getting the keynote now, because your book is so fresh that it actually includes even like the Meta-Modern and Laloux's book and even very recent developments and very recent viewpoints. So it's really nice that we can have this conversation, we can have this input this year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, so to speak, a way to cover the many faces of integral politics. Right? I mean, names are just words. What matters is the substance behind, and some people prefer the term meta-modern. Some would say integral, some would say teal. I mean, I don't really care what we call it, as long as those specific qualities are in place that really make up for a new paradigm, that really go beyond what we know in certain specific ways. I don't care about the name. So the book is also an attempt to, map in a way what is already out there. I mean, many really cool approaches are there, but some of them haven't very explicitly spoken about politics because it was just not their focus. So the book is about, well, if we look from that lens of politics, well, what can we learn from all those pioneers, from all those inspirational thinkers?
Yeah, and how can we define politics to cover much more than just voting once every 2 years or so.
Yeah, and politics as usual, which most people associate negatively, right?
Yeah,
if I do my little, exercises, what's your first association if you think about politics? Usually it's negative. Usually it's about, enemy bashing, harsh debates, and so on and so forth. And it's not usually connected with fun or with aliveness, for example.
No.
Whereas when I give seminars on integral politics, usually people would come out feeling more alive than they came in. And in that case, I say, okay, I achieved my goal. Thank you. That's really, I call it the magic of integral politics, right? And I used to use a little magic stick, for ironic metaphor, because I found that if you apply some of those integral principles into practical experiences when you work with people in dialogues or whatever process, and for people who haven't known the integral approach before, it's like magic, right? Because it feels so different, and you can feel it, and you have a different sensation. So like magic.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it's completely new quality. And one girl after one of the seminars in Switzerland, she said, "Oh, if this is politics, I'm interested." I thought I
Wonderful.
wasn't interested in politics. That's not my
Yeah.
thing. But if this is politics, I want to do it. I'm in.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I got interested when you said earlier that there is a spiritual side to integral politics, because when I decided 40 years ago to really turn towards enter the Buddhist path and really learn about meditation, and it felt like making a decision whether I'd be active in the world in politics and or in alternative. I was into alternative um, ways of making money, of building communities, or whether I look inside. It was outside or inside. You're working outside or turning inside. And then when I met when I started reading Ken Wilber, I realized, okay, it's both. It has to be both. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that reminds me of a quite a well-known German coach and speaker, Veit Lindau. Maybe you've heard of him. He has now launched a new movement, which he calls a future human movement, human future movement.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And
been
he's
around for
actually, on the integral level, let's say for a long time, but he has been serving quite a greenish audience for a long time, interested in self-development and so on and so forth. And he had some kind of, I don't know if it was a crisis, but like he went on a kind of sabbatical last year, thinking about, well, am I really doing the right thing still? And he
Okay.
came back. This is what he came back with, saying, I'm not making any compromise anymore. I'm really not serving those people anymore who just want to sit on their meditation thing and, just be at peace with themselves. If you don't want to go out and share this peace with the world, you're not my client anymore. And so he's now building up this huge movement based on those ideas, right? That the political action and the inner development need to go together. And we have a fucking duty also. If we think of ourselves as more developed or more awake or whatever, to go out there and share it with others and put it in service of the rest of the world who is
Wonderful.
needing it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's make the conference also one step on this path.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Fight actually came to IEC 2014. I think
Okay.
you went there, and
I missed that.
yeah, I don't know. Some people I didn't really catch on with. He was just giving a short section presentation, and he just, when we started the dialogue, I think it was actually Thomas Steininger leading the dialogue in his section. And he just stood at the side. I mean, he just waited while the others were speaking, and he just stood at the side and waiting till the dialogue was over. He didn't join. He didn't join in, so he didn't quite get the format, which seems. But some people really liked what he was saying. I found, yeah, at that time I didn't really get it.
Well, and he's only becoming more, let's say, political now, which I find super exciting, right?
Yeah, that
Personally,
sounds
such a
good.
big outreach, at least in the German-speaking arena, is such powerful support for this idea of integral politics, even if it doesn't really explicitly speak about integral politics, but that's what it is, in my opinion, at least. And so, yeah, I'm curious to see what comes out of this.
I'll have a look into that. Maybe we'll invite him again for
Yeah,
27.
you should.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. So dancing with polarities. Yeah. So that's probably going to be your title. We agreed on that in where do I have it? Integral politics. How did we say it?
Finding wholeness in politics.
That's
how
right.
to serve the polarities.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good as a working title, I would say.
Yeah.
If I come up with something better, I will let you know.
Yeah, and you can do that really till the end. I mean, we'll roll with that now because we have to start advertising. We have to sell tickets. Otherwise, without participants, there's no conference.
Right. But then at the same time, if Putin presses the red button 2 weeks before the conference, you want to speak about that, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, let's hope that's. I mean, anyway, we'll see what happens. I mean, Trump promised to end the war within 24 hours. We'll see.
Welcome in the world of dreams.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what. Yeah, let's really hope and pray that the fear of World War III is not going to, that people are actually going to stop at the worst. People in power. And also, I mean, the situation in Israel is also really, and what's happening in Syria. I mean, there's a lot of very, very dangerous fires breaking out now that could change in either direction until May. So I appreciate that you will just have to wing it. You can prepare something, but you will actually have to just speak to
Good
the
planning sets you
moment.
free.
Yeah. Yes, to have enough grounding that you know what you're talking about, and then to be able to be in the moment. I mean, I'm never that interested in people who say the same thing every time for years and years, because you can read that or you can watch a video, but I'm always very moved when people like speak from the moment, from what's most alive in them at that moment. If they can do that, yeah,
Well,
then a conversation can start. Yeah.
the interesting thing about integral politics is, I think, to apply all those great ideas, right? What does it mean? What does it mean in practice?
Yeah.
What does it mean
Yeah.
in terms of understanding what's going on in a different way, and to embracing more of it, and bringing more of the shadow in. And, also be open to the transformative dimension to it, right? To maybe we have to change some of our nicely put together identities, and include some of what we have identified or have defined out of our identity, and take it back.
That's right.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not right. I can't be right all the time. Maybe the other person that I don't agree with and that really triggers me, maybe has actually some viewpoints that I'm missing.
But then nobody's wrong all the time as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Nobody's smart enough to be wrong all the time.
And that's actually a phrase by Ken Wilber that has.
That's right.
I used it in one of my last dialogue sessions in Freiburg, and one person afterwards came back to me, and she's a facilitator herself, right? And she said, "This phrase landed so well with me. For me, it was like a huge liberation, right? Oh, I can relax now knowing that the way you work. Okay, everybody is a little bit right."
Yeah.
For her, that was a good relief, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like banal, if you're familiar with the integral, and
I mean, it's impossible to be right all the time and to know everything, so it's very stupid of a politician or somebody in power. It's actually very dangerous if they think they have all the answers.
Well, I'm not sure if they think they have, but the problem in my analysis, at least, is that the system, the lower right quadrant that we have in place, with this whole competitive logic, that you can only be successful in this system if you compete against somebody else, and the simplest way to compete is to say the other person is wrong, right? And I have the truth. So this is an incentive of the system that drives politicians into those kinds of behaviors, even though if you would talk to them over a glass of wine in a more relaxed setting, they would probably never claim that they know it all, right? But in this mode of, being in a campaign, that's a behavior that is asked of by the system, and we have to question those mechanisms, because it's even not the fault of those politicians. Because once you enter the system, once you want to be successful in this system, you have to practice what is asked for, right? And that's the difficult challenge, because once you're in the system, you don't have the inner space anymore to question anything, or let alone, to look at the system from a bird's perspective, so to speak, which is what we need. We would need to have a system that can see itself, right? The famous phrase by Donella Meadows, and to really come up with a broad enough perspective to see, okay, where are things going wrong? And can we change something? Do we maybe need to change something where dynamics start to get dysfunctional as the system comes to its natural end, in the sense of, okay, you have new challenges, we need new mechanisms, we need new ways of responding to those challenges.
Yeah.
And this is why the system is also, in my humble analysis, the political system is one of the last ones to change, because it's running in a way, it's successfully running in the way it's running. I mean, relatively successful, and the people inside it have just no space at all to really look left or right, or to question what's going on. And so the innovation has to come from outside. So we, the citizens, are really in an important role there. We have to do the job of scratching the system and say, okay, can we pause for a moment, please, and see what's going on?
Yeah, and have to change also education, the education system, or to change it from within. We're going to have Jamila Tressel, a student of Margaret Rasfeld, who's also in Lalou's book. And she will speak on integral, or she will speak on education the way Margaret does. And so that's, I'm really happy about her being there. You know, I somehow see you and Karen and Jamila as like a triangle. You know, you more focusing on the magic triangle, magic women's triangle. So I think, to change our education system, or change our way of being with each other. That I mean, we're brought up to be competitive rather than sharing and mutually supportive. So that has to change.
And for all those people who are not anymore in the educational system because they're just grown-ups, right?
That's right.
We need to provide experiential spaces where they can actually experience how politics could be done differently, because we just don't know how it could look like, because that's all we see in the talk shows and in the whatever on television, how politicians behave. So people think that's politics. But politics could be very different. It's the story that we tell. Can we come up with different stories? Can we come up with different experiences? And that's my experience of doing this, that people are usually really blown away. Okay, this feels so much better. Can we do this all the time, please? And it's essentially the same effect that you would have with young people who are socialized in some kind of alternative schooling. They would not go back to conventional school. It's just not possible, because your mind and your heart is much wider, and you want to go to something smaller again. So we need to also spread, well, not the news, but the experience that something is completely possible. And it's just a matter of maybe having a different kind of hosting, having a different conversation, telling different stories, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're also trying. That's why we keep putting on these integral conferences, European conferences, to talk also to people from other countries. And I mean, it's not only a European conference now; it's really turned global. I mean, people come from Asia, from all continents, also except Antarctica. No penguins. Yeah, and I really like your idea of comparing values to see where are similarities, where are differences, maybe different emphasis on different values. Yeah, it would be wonderful to have that kind of conversation. Yes, so I think we covered a lot of ground. Thank you so much, Elke. That's been very, very interesting. I really look forward to your talk, and also maybe workshops or sections that we can create around politics. I know there's a Swiss group of Swiss people who are also going to offer a workshop on integral politics. So
they're
it's
actually
going to
the
be
best example of putting this into practice. The best and only example has been successful and around for like 15 years now as a party named Integral Politics in Switzerland.
Yeah. I've heard them. Yeah, I think they've been to several IECs also. Yeah,
some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stop the recording.